everybody. So today we're going to talk about the Descendant. The Descendant, specifically the Descendant being like the shadow, or part of the shadow. One of the places to look for the shadow. The Descendant will always be either the cusp of the 7th house. If you're using like Placidus, it'll be the cusp of the 7th house. If you're using whole signs, it'll fall in the 7th house. It's always like involved with the 7th house though. And the Descendant is, it's where, you know, the Ascendant is where the chart rises. So the Descendant is like where the chart sets. If you want to think about like the sun rising, essentially where the Ascendant is, the sun sets where the Descendant is. So it is thought of as like a more shadowy, there's a shadow to it. The Descendant is also like what energy you might attract into your life, like by sign, whatever sign is on the, if you're using Placidus, whatever sign is on the cusp of the 7th house. The sign energy that's there might be energy that you attract into your life. You may not like this, but you might have a tendency to attract it. You also might project this energy onto other people. That's possible too. But I'm not going to be talking about the Descendant in terms of relationships or that kind of thing, or what you attract. It's more in terms, here in this video, it's going to be more in terms of the shadow and how this might, specifically when you've got planets conjunct the Descendant. Because recently in like the past month, I've had clients that have had planets conjunct the Descendant, and I don't think I've never made a video about this specifically. I've talked about I've talked about the North and South nodes being conjunct the Descendant. I've never talked about just planets, I don't think. So when you think about the Descendant as like the shadow part of you, if you think about it from that lens, in that way, it's not unconscious. Like the 12th house is unconscious shit, right? The 8th house is something like a bridge between the conscious and the unconscious. The Descendant is not those things. It is conscious, right? It is a conscious place. It's, if you've got that energy on the energy of the sign that the Descendant is in, and any planets that are there conjunct it, this isn't unconscious. The person is aware of it. But since it exists around the shadow, right, it might be energy that the person ignores or brushes under the rug, or perhaps it's possible that the person may not utilize that energy very well. It's always possible. There might be something wonky with the way that they utilize the sign energy that is on the Descendant, and any planets that are conjunct the Descendant, the same thing might happen. This is what I'm about to do though with the planets. I'm going to do the Sun through Mars. This is not universal, right? This is just another way to look at the Descendant and planets that happen to be conjuncted. I would, for the shadow, specifically when you're looking at it in terms of the shadow, and I know that there are probably people that will feel like this is too wide, and that's fine. I actually feel like it's kind of too wide myself, but I would open it this much looking at the Descendant of the lens of the shadow as being the shadow. I would start with 10 degrees applying and separating from the Descendant. So if your Descendant is at 15 degrees, 15 degrees Leo, I would look from 5 degrees to 25 degrees Leo. Any planets that happen to fall there, I might start out considering that those planets or that planet conjunct the Descendant. I don't know if I stick with that though. That would really depend on the whole chart, but I think I would widen it to 10 degrees for this specific thing. Just because I feel like any planet within that 10 degree applying or separating from the Descendant could have a tendency to get ignored or brushed under the rug or used in a fucked way. I could see it happening. That's not universal at all, but I could see it happening. So I would start out with that and then come in, bring your orbs in as you're working with the chart. But I would start there. You can start however you want. That's how I would start. But okay, And I'm going to leave the signs out of it because I'm not talking about that right now. I'm just talking about the planets. Just talking about the planets. And again, this is not universal, but these are just some ideas. So let's say you've got the sun. The sun is conjunct the descendant. You might be looking at somebody that their ego or their life force or their identity is part of the shadow or somehow tied in with the shadow. There might be things about their identity that they ignore. There might be things about their ego that they ignore. Let me see. Looking at the keywords to make sure. Confidence. Confidence is one. There might be things about their confidence that are kind of... and by the way, these things can either swing from, like with the sun, we could be talking about too much ego or too much confidence, something being wonky with that, all the way over to the person just not having any at all, any sense of ego or any sense of confidence at all, something like that. It would really depend on the whole chart as to how this would actually flesh out, or if it would flesh out at all. Maybe it's, but those are kind of the ways that I would go with that. Self-expression and creative potential are other ones. There might be something kind of more shadowy about that or ignored about that or used in a fucked way. It's possible. You would also want to look at, in this case, whatever house cusp Leo is on. That house cusp will dispose of itself, or that house will dispose of itself to the sun, which will give you another layer. Like, okay, like let's say you had Leo on the cusp of the on the cusp of the 12th house, and it was disposing of itself to the sun conjunct the descendant in the 7th. Well, that adds in 12th house things like self-sabotage, escape, all of those kind of 12th house things are then bending to the sun in the 7th, in whatever sign it's in this fake chart. So with Leo being on the cusp of the 12th, right, you're already looking at somebody that might have some issues, ego identity issues, and actually being able to feel themselves as it is. That would kind of drive that notion home of which way to go with that. Is it too much or too little, right? Too much or too little ego. So the dispositions are important to take into consideration for this. It'll give you a clear picture of kind of what you're looking at as far as which way to go. Let's see. The next one we can do the moon. Okay, so if you got the moon conjunct the descendant, you might be looking at somebody who ignores their emotions, somebody who ignores nurturing that they need, somebody who ignores their feelings. This might also be somebody who handles their feelings in a fucked way, handles their emotions in a fucked way, reflects in a fucked way, or ignores reflecting on anything. All of those things could be possible. Security, notions, things having to do with the mother could also play in there, could be part of the shadow. Again, you'd want to look at whatever house cusp Cancer is on. It will dispose of itself to the moon. This will help give you like with the sun one, I'm not going to do an example of those for each one, but it'll give you an idea. Whatever house cusp Cancer sits on will give you an idea of, are they ignoring their emotions? Is it an ignoring thing? Is it a brushing under the rug? Or is it they handle them in a wonky way? The dispositions will help you to see, it'll help to kind of flesh that out further to know which way to go. Along with any aspects that the moon also makes or the sun also makes. You got to take the whole thing into account. But I'm in no way, this is not universal as well. Yeah. Okay. So let's say you got Mercury conjunct the descendant. So you might be looking at somebody who their mind, the way they think, the way they, what they think, what they communicate. Those sorts of things. All of those things are around the shadow. So there might be things that they think about that they ignore or brush aside. What they communicate might be a little off or might be a little wonky. All of those kinds of things might play into curiosity is another one. Perhaps they ignore that. Perhaps there are things about their curiosity that they ignore. Or perhaps their curiosity is a little fucked. It's always possible. That seems, possible. And again, you want to look at what house cusps Gemini and Virgo are on in the chart. Because those houses will then dispose of themselves or bend to Mercury, which will give you a better idea as to how this actually fleshes out, and kind of which way we're going with the shadow, with what's being ignored or what's kind of fucked. Venus. Venus is obviously love and its value and its it's harmony. There's harmony there too. All of those kinds of things. So if you have Venus conjunct the Descendant, you might be looking what someone values might be kind of ignored. This might be by them or by other people. What they love, either, what they love about themselves, what they love in general might be kind of ignored, or there might be something kind of wonky about it. Something that maybe they know exists, but they don't really accept. All of those kinds of things. Look at those when you've got Venus conjunct the Descendant as possible avenues, possible ways to go. And definitely look at the house cusps that Taurus and Libra are on in the chart, because those houses will bend to Venus, where Venus falls, right? In any chart, but depending on what houses we're talking about and the rest of the chart will kind of give you an idea as to what is either being ignored or is kind of wonky. It'll help to flesh it out further. Mars. Now, Mars is drive, Mars is action, Mars is assertiveness, even be anger and aggression. So perhaps what makes somebody angry, what drives somebody, all of those kinds of things might be ignored or pushed under the rug or handled in a screwy way. It's possible. This one, I find that this one can be kind of a challenging one when it's conjunct the Descendant, especially if it's like an anger, especially if there's something anger related. And Mars doesn't have to be anger, but it can be. If there's something anger related that the person isn't wanting to deal with or or do anything about, that can be that can cause some issues. It can, if Mars presents this way. And way that you figure this out or see kind of how this will play into everything is by looking at the house cusp that Aries is on in the chart. That house will bend to Mars. You can also look at the house cusp that Scorpio is on. Since Scorpio is the traditional ruler of Mars, I would look at this too. Yeah. I said that backwards. Mars is a traditional ruler of Scorpio. Sorry, I'm going crazy. Anyway, yeah, I said that backwards. Anyway, I'm gonna get going because this is getting kind of long. But if you want to follow us on Instagram, you can find us at Let's Fuck with Astrology. I am at Saturn Season Astrology on Instagram. Natalie is at Paterno Astrology on Instagram. If you are wanting to like or subscribe or whatever people do on YouTube, you can find us by searching for Let's Fuck with Astrology in the YouTube search bar. If you do the right thing, come join us on the subreddit Let's Fuck with Astrology. And if you're interested in the star cards, go to letsfuckwithastrology.com/star-cards. Okay, y'all. See y'all later.